So just 3 episodes ago, they tackled Robot Yeti in an episode which is sadly mostly missing, and I found myself surprisingly entertained by it even if it wasn't the most memorable of adventures. And if I was watching this show when it came out, I probably wouldn't have expected them to make a sequel to that story, and I probably wouldn't have really wanted it either because it was pretty enjoyable, but it wasn't very memorable, and I don't know where you would really go with that story. But everybody is right about the Web of Fear, and this is easily one of the Second Doctor's best episodes yet. And I was instantly sold on this episode in the first few minutes when they played their really mysterious and atmospheric music, which completely sold me on the episode.
He's a fool, an old fool.
Father? Father.
Anne. Oh, what are you doing here?
Looking for you.
Huh?
You're supposed to be meeting me.
Really, that music is some of, if not the best music I've heard from Classic Who so far. It's really good and does a lot to sell the scenes when it is used. That being said, I do wish it had been used a little bit more, as it is only in a couple of scenes rather early on, and then goes bizarrely absent for the most of the runtime. For as much as I'm praising the music, there was one musical moment that really bothered me actually, and that was in episode 4 when they used music for the Cybermen in place of Yeti music, which just felt lazy and took me completely out of the drama of the situation for a good bit. And if you haven't seen this one, the basic premise is that the Doctor and company get stuck in London Underground with a group of soldiers and find themselves dealing with the Yeti over 40 years after the events of the Abominable Snowmen. I really do think this episode plays well with its 6 parts and feels fully fleshed out. I really think 4 parts would have been too rushed, which I actually said last week as well, and I'm happy to be saying that because far too often episodes go on just too long, and this story and the last story did not. I really am a big fan of the atmosphere in this one. So much of it just works, mostly due to how it's shot. So much of the story is just dark and empty and claustrophobic, and it really just kept me hooked for the whole run of it. Obviously, it's hard to compare this episode to The Abominable Snowman because that 6-parter is mostly missing, and this one has all but 1 episode existing, but I find myself surprised at how well the Yeti worked in this story. They don't have an incredible design. They do kind of lumber around, and they're rather stiff, and really they are just giant balls of fur. But somehow that never really bothered me, like at all. I thought that they worked well as the threat of this story. They were mostly in the background, but kept getting brought up enough for us to remember that there is a real threat to be concerned about. Also, the episode doesn't rely on them to keep the viewer on edge, as it's mainly the atmosphere of the episode. It's the music and the way that it's shot that keep the viewer aware of the present danger. And they also have this fungus that keeps everybody confined to limited areas as it grows closer and closer to our protagonists. And also there's the great intelligence. It does become hard to compare the Yeti to their original design, not just because we see more of them in this episode, because that one is unfortunately missing, but also because they have a redesign. So I don't have a clear picture of how the Yeti work on screen visually for that episode in comparison to this one. Also, I want to say I'm starting to get a more proper feeling for my thoughts on Victoria. She always seems like she doesn't get quite enough to do in these episodes, but she still managed to find something that makes her feel useful and makes her feel intelligent and like a good companion worthy of traveling with the Doctor. One thing I can think of is when she listened in and found out that Professor Travers and his daughter Anne suspected the Doctor of being in charge of the Yeti, and just little things like that help to show that she can be a little bit useful. But I do hope the writers give her just a little bit more to do before she does leave. So yeah, I do quite like Victoria. Also, I think this goes without saying, but the Doctor and Jamie, they're just really entertaining in this one. They are both just loads of fun and have great chemistry with one another, and they still manage to take the situation seriously, and I just enjoy their dynamic. This episode is notable for the return of Nicholas Courtney, where he makes his first turn-in as the Lethbridge Steward, although I know him as the Brigadier, even though he is not yet a Brigadier in this episode, and he worked well enough. I mean, I enjoy him a decent amount. Like, I think he's fine. I'm not going to be singing his praises, at least from this story. You know, he's fine, he works in this one, and it is a bit nice to see a familiar face. Overall, this was a wonderfully dark and atmospheric adventure that made great use of the London Underground. I really enjoyed the music and thought that the Yeti worked pretty effectively. I still enjoy our characters and found this episode to be quite a well-paced bit of television. I thought that this was a great one, and I am going to give The Web of Fear a rating of 8.75 out of 10. If you join me this Sunday, I will bring you a review of Fury from the Deep. I have already listened to it, and I have plenty of thoughts about that one, so I can't wait to discuss that with you in just a week's time. I hope to see you around for that, but if not, that's totally cool. Just know that I appreciate your time here today. And with that said, thank you very much for watching. Take care, and have a lovely week.